There was always something a bit magical to me. The night I stayed up all night making some of that material, I always hoped and prayed that it would make its way into the film. When Curry showed me the edit and he had placed it in there at the very end, if there's a spot where I'm gonna get emotional seeing my own work in it, that's the spot right there.
Welcome back. We have another episode of Listen to My Nightmare. And on this particular episode, we are moving along with our theme of new horror films and new horror film composers. New horror has really come a long way. There's not as many slasher tropes or werewolves or vampires. It's all about new experimentation, and music is a big part of that experimentation. So I have the composer of a particularly large film that came out this year, Obsession. His name is Rock Burwell, and welcome, Rock, to this and doing this with me and speaking with me today.
Yeah, thanks so much. I'm excited.
Okay, first things first, I got to get this off my chest. Is there any relation between you and this guy, Carter Burwell?
It's been the question. I've gotten that a lot. As far as I know, no, but yeah, no, I've never met him, and there's no familial connection, but I've been looking deeper into it, and maybe there is a common ancestor somewhere.
I knew that there wasn't, but that was as soon as I saw the name Rock Burwell, and I'm always this close to calling you Carter Burwell or Rock Hudson. So if I do that, then at least I got it out of the way.
You're good.
Combination of the both. Okay, so Obsession was a movie that really, it was one of the big hits of the year. It made a lot of money, obviously, and it was a great film, a very unique film that was a twist on the whole monkey paw story. So, what were you doing when you got the gig? Because I understand you hadn't composed for a film before this one.
I'd only done a short film before through a friend's project, and I've been a music producer for over a decade, and that's how I actually met Curry and Cooper, through working on producing a song for their sketch comedy duo. So that's where it all began, and it was during that time that he happened to get greenlit to make Obsession, and just kind of the way it all, fell into my lap in a way, in a very serendipitous way. And he offered me the project and kind of auditioned for it and got the gig.
He was your guy. That's great, though. It's great. It's a good connection to have, right?
For sure. Yeah, we really hit it off, and he's an incredible guy to work with. And I think we just really knew that we connected on the same wavelength pretty immediately.
But obviously, doing comedy, it's a very, this is a very different kind of thing, a very different type of film, different subject matter. So what were the conversations like with the director, with Curry Barker?
A lot of it was kind of setting the emotional tone of the types of ideas and emotions to explore, and how this film was meant to feel. And I think making sure we saw eye to eye on that, and it was just a lot of, I think, exploring and just figuring out if it was going to be a good match, and just sending each other things back and forth. And it was kind of like it was consistently taking shape from. It just felt like a DIY, almost like run and gun process, even on the scoring side, and a lot of this was figured out on the fly until we felt pretty locked in on the vision and on the sonic palette and everything. And it felt very fluid and very natural.
And in coming up with because it is a really specific sound for this film, in coming up with that, what did you see when you actually made those sounds, or had you seen nothing at the time? Was it just based on a conversation?
The the original stuff I made was before. I think I had just read the script, and that is when I was kind of asked to make a handful of things that we could show producers for them to pretty much give me the thumbs up, because obviously I had no sort of portfolio for something like this, and a lot of that stuff actually ended up making its way into the movie, but there was like, that's how it started, and it was a lot of off of conversation stuff, but obviously like once I started to get picture, that's where a lot more of it took shape, and he was giving me like little chunks at a time. Like he'd call me and be like, "Hey, I just edited the next like 15 minutes. Can I come by? Or if you want to come see it?" And then we'd sit down, talk about it, or I would just break into it. And yeah, it was just like I said before, very fluid. I don't think it was maybe a traditional like by the book film composing experience, but I've also heard they're all kind of different and unique and case by case. But it really felt like it was a lot of people's first experience working on a feature like this, and we were just kind of figuring it out as we went, and I think that's kind of what made it special at the same time.
I mean, it's why I always ask that question, because film composing is so much about the process, right? You have some films that are composed literally to screen, and then you have some that are, composed without seeing a single thing, right? It's the processes can all be different. But this is a movie that I have to say, I went to see it. I try to see every new horror film in the theater. Haven't seen everyone, but I see most of them. And this is the one that when I went to see, the music hit me the most. I was talking to Kevin Bergeron from Waxwork Records recently, and I told him, I said, Obsession is actually my favorite horror score of the year so far. He agreed with me on that, actually. It's the one that I go to the most this year. I love it so much. It's really powerful. I believe personally it's the most powerful part of the film. I think without this score, the film isn't quite as good. What I'm hearing a lot of is I hear a lot of like nostalgia, right? There is a bit of a, I hate to say this, but Stranger Things influence with the synth. There's a lot of 80s warm nostalgia to it. Was there any sort of play between that and like the darker elements that you brought in?
Sure. And yeah, first off, thanks so much. Like that really means a ton to hear that. And it's still, it's just so surreal to hear that type of praise from so many people, first time doing something like this, and it's been just so cool. And so, yeah, that really means a lot. As far as like the influences and the sonic palette that we used, we definitely like sought out that type of style. I don't think it was directly influenced from anything like there was never like a Stranger Things like reference or something like that. I think I feel like anytime you're using some of these like vintage synthesizers, you're just getting immediate comparison to other things that have used the similar sounds. And I've seen a lot of different comparisons from things like Silent Hill or Resident Evil or and things I've like I never played any of those games, but I'm like now I'm drawn to at least listening to the soundtracks and stuff. But there is such a warmth and almost, to me, an inherent darkness to some of those sounds, or it's easier to like maybe pull out emotions. And I don't know if it's like the younger generation and having that kind of flashback to whatever it was like 30 or 40 years ago is now back in and kind of yearning for some of these old sounds or whatever it is, but it seems to be kind of a hit on the internet right now, like that type of sonic palette in general. And we did have certain like, there's like that famous, aquatic ambiance, Donkey Kong Country, like there's like that was an influence, like things like that really like interesting, just like different pockets of inspiration we found here and there. But the nostalgia factor, I think, was something we intentionally were after a bit, because I don't want to misquote Curry or Taylor, the DP, but the way the movie was shot and felt, even though there are modern elements to it through like smartphones and stuff, there's a lot of the movie that could feel a bit timeless. Like you couldn't necessarily place it in whether it's the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, or up until today. And I think maybe like the nostalgia factor within the 80s style synthesizers and whatnot adds to that feeling of even though this is a 2025, 2026 release, it doesn't inherently feel super modern. And yeah, so maybe that was the approach on the nostalgia side.
It does. It actually does. I never even really thought about it, but it does actually have a bit of a 90s look to it. That's what I just things like the shots of, or the scenes of them in the pub together and stuff like that, and the parties and everything. Yeah, it's not really 80s, but it could be 90s. I was going to ask you though. That's a good point that you brought up, the vintage synths. I was going to ask you if any vintage synths were actually used in this.
Yeah, unfortunately not like physical hardware, but I do have a whole library of emulations of the vintage synths, like specifically the Arturia collection. They make some really cool stuff, and they've modeled virtual instruments off of the exact synthesizers from the 80s, like the Prophet and like Junos and the CS80 and the DX7, like a bunch of those. So I would love to have the studio with, someday be able to actually pull from real hardware, but was working with what I had, and of course the story wasn't the biggest budget in the world, so made do with what I had, and I have I've collected a lot of stuff on the software side, so that's primarily how I work, but I would love to expand it to true like analog gear.
I mean, yeah, like it is crazy to think, and I was just having this conversation that nowadays, I mean, you can kind of have every instrument in a box, right? Like you don't really have to go and collect however many $10,000 synth or something like that, right?
100%. Yeah.
It's crazy what you can make. It seems to me that there's almost like a bit of misdirection at play here, right? Where you have these because the script itself, the story itself, is actually even darker under the surface than what it is. When I went into this film, I thought, what are they going to do with the monkey's paw that's never been told before, right? Like I already know what's going to happen in this film, but there was a twist on it. It's not just one person in the film that has an obsession. I guess that's a way of saying it without spoiling anything. And so I'm wondering if misdirection was a piece of the score as well.
I think, yeah, a bit. That's where you hear a lot of the like some of the methods that were primarily used to create these kind of unsettling or that like idea of exploring the uncanny valley of you're not really sure what you're feeling, and the emotions just associated with that kind of disorienting area is like a lot of what I was doing was taking chord progressions, like relationships between notes that were on the surface level pretty major, pretty positive, but either over along like the whole cue or certain things, certain layers or lines within them, pitch modulating and bending things and just making it so like the relationship with the notes themselves are possibly staying kind of like romantic and happy, but overall it's twisting into a place that is leaving you feeling uneasy. And I mean, that could be a bit of the misdirection where I think it seemed to be effective in bringing out some unique emotional experiences that I've heard people, talking about in messaging. So that was definitely a lot of the approach. And then there's a lot of use of hard cuts, and there's a lot of abrupt stops as well. And I think that's another thing we did to kind of just like keep you on your toes a little bit.
I heard that the final track of the film actually came out of your original audition.
That was like pretty much the first thing I made off of reading the script, and then and that was the final track, the Love Is in the Air Part 2, and then that eventually got repurposed towards the end of the process of scoring, and that became Love's in the Air Part 1, and is like the whole love montage, and that's the version that's kind of taking off and going viral out of every song on the soundtrack. But yeah, there was always something a bit magical to me the night I stayed up all night making some of that material, and I always kind of like hoped and prayed that it would make its way into the film. And then when Curry showed me the edit and he had placed it in there at the very end, it was like it's kind of where, if there's a spot where I'm gonna get emotional seeing my own work in it, that's the spot right there.
Did you get to work at all with Backlot or Waxwork Records on the release?
Like putting together the soundtrack and working with like the mastering team and all that stuff, and just being in direct communication with them. That was the most I did, but like I had to cut down the score and like the cue sheet. What I submitted for the film was like, I think 1 hour and 9 minutes of material, and the soundtrack had to be cut down to 44 minutes to fit on vinyl. So that was something I'd never done before. And then like retitling everything to, like, there were a lot of my cue names were like just overtly, a lot of them were just like full on spoilers. And so I'm like, I need to get a little more creative with the titles here. And then they had sent me like the art as they were working on it, but they crushed it, and I didn't have like any direct input there or anything, but it was cool to like just be, you know, right with them and just have that direct line of communication while it was all taking shape.
Yeah, I mean, I bet that stuff like that always, you know, I find that fascinating too, like coming up with the titles for the tracks and what you want to call them and everything like that is super fun. So far, this will be one of the best soundtracks to come from Waxwork, and I think it'll be one of the best of the year so far. Take us back. Were you at the TIFF screening, the Toronto screening?
Yeah, I was.
Take us back to that and what that experience was like. It played at Toronto International Film Festival Midnight Madness last September. I think
Correct.
it was.
Yeah. The was it the Royal Alexandra Theatre?
Yep. Yeah, Royal Alexandra Theatre.
Yeah, that was such an amazing time. Like, never been a part of anything like that. Never gone to a film festival before. The Midnight Madness crowd is insane. I had never heard reactions like that in a theater before. There were so many more reactions, like audible, collective. Like, it's a really big theater too. I think it was over 1,000 people or somewhere in that ballpark. Yeah, the whole TIFF experience was just amazing. We were there I think I was there for 3 days and just really soaked it all in. And yeah, it was just a very special time. And like, we didn't know the response. Like, my personal experience, I was so incredibly nervous watching. I'd never watched the film in a room full of people. I'd only seen it like with a couple of my closest people in my life around me. And so my heart didn't stop racing the entire time. My parents drove out, and so they were there as well. And it was, yeah, just really special. And then to get the news shortly after, I think like 48 hours after or something, that Focus was acquiring it. And it was just, I guess that really started the the whole like mega machine and journey here of like exceeding expectations one after the next, and it just kept getting bigger and bigger all the way until now, and it's just been such an insane ride. And yeah, I have like TIFF has such a special place in my heart, and I'm gonna make it a point to go back, whether I'm part of a film there or not, just to experience it. I love the energy there. It was an amazing time, and Toronto's an awesome city.
It is. I love TIFF. Well, I imagine that machine's going to continue to roll, especially for Curry Barker. There must be a lot of opportunities, being handed to him now. A lot of interest that's been drummed up. Do you think you're going to continue on with him on that journey?
100%. Yeah. I mean, anything that he wants me on, I'm right there with him. I am just starting his next film, Anything But Ghosts, right about now. Like I just, was met up with him and saw some of the first pieces of his edit. So it's looking really exciting, and really looking forward to jumping into this process and hopping on to this next film and exploring like what this sonic palette's going to look like. And yeah, he's got a couple other things lined up, and we've had some little talks here and there, but keeping my focus on this one for now. And yeah, I'm just very excited, feeling very lucky and privileged to even have these opportunities. And it's really cool to explore a new like art form. Honestly, I always thought film composing would be a really cool thing to explore, but it's not something I necessarily knew how to break into. And now I'm trying to make the absolute most of it.
I think a lot of the modern film composers, especially in genre films, are coming from totally different backgrounds, right? Like, it's not necessarily somebody that's conducting an orchestra anymore. It's going to be people that are far more experimental in nature, right? So, sure. But I won't delve into the new film yet because it's very early days and we don't want to spoil anything or anything like that. But hopefully when it comes out, we'll be talking again soon about that one. And I definitely can't wait to hear what you come up with as well for that one. See awesome. And hear. It's going to be great.
I'm excited to see how it all takes shape myself, and excited for the world to see it.
It's fun to be on this journey, right?
Oh yeah, it's I'm a lucky guy.
Okay, well, thanks a lot, Rock, for joining us today. Again, this has been Aaron Von Lupton, Rock Burwell from Obsession, and tune in next time for Listen to My Nightmare. I think you're going to like it.
I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you.